Hey everybody, I'm Katallina, and today we're talking about episode 2 of Unnamed Memory. Now, I've got to be honest with all of you from the get-go, and say that I really don't know how I felt about the second episode of this show. There was a lot here that actually really annoyed me, and some of that is from a technical or writing perspective, whereas some of that is probably from just a personal preferences and pet peeves perspective. But we are going to discuss all of that, as well as the things I thought were good, as we talk about the show today. The first thing that I want to talk about is the fact that Oscar got almost entirely shoe-lined in this episode. He got really screwed over, and he got made to look like an absolutely incompetent moron. And as somebody who sees this so often right now in Western media, when I see this in an anime, it really makes me bristle. Now, let me make something really clear when I'm saying that. I do not mean that we should take everything and strike that, reverse it, like we're Willy Wonka or something. But what I do mean is that I think I would like it a lot better if we were seeing a situation where the two actually need to work together. And to be fair, it's entirely possible that we will see something like that down the line. But in this episode, he was just completely worthless. He was a gnat under Tinasha's shoe, and frankly, she should have stepped on him like she was Liu Kang stepping on Reptile in a Mortal Kombat movie. Because it was that bad. The other thing that really drove me up the wall is that right in the middle of a serious situation, right as they are dealing with a battle, he turns to her and goes, "Marry me," and it's like, dude, what are you doing? I mean, here's the thing. I get that that is the central premise of the show, and it's actually a premise I really like, the idea that he wants to convince this woman to marry him and everything. I think that's kind of cool. But at the same time, if we're going to be getting that line from him at some point in every episode, if this was a more comedic anime, that might work, but this show, as far as I can tell, largely looks like it's taking itself pretty seriously. So he's just coming across as a moron. I hope that he'll eventually take a hint and back off of that, because I don't think it's going to win him any favors with her, and it sure as heck isn't winning him any favors with me. Another thing about it, of course, is the reality that these two don't really know each other, and I hear a lot of people like singing the praises of their chemistry, but they're just really not working for me so far. Because, I mean, if we're being brutally honest, as I said in my last discussion about this show, this is a show set in a, medieval time history where birth lines were incredibly important, and you've got to realize, at this point in the story, until they show otherwise, and I mean show, not tell, you've got to understand that right now, Oscar cares about Tinasha's womb. Tinasha isn't even really a person to him. And the thing is, it's the same thing on her end. Oscar is not really a person to her. Oscar is an obligation and a contract. These two situations put together and being taken seriously, at least for me this far, is really dour. I liked them somewhat, and I liked their banter in the first episode, but seeing how it's going here, it just really bugged me, and it just really wasn't gelling with me. Moving to something more positive, because I don't want to be all sour grapes, one thing I did like is the fact that the other characters have already discovered that Tinasha is actually a witch. I found this refreshing because when I started the episode and I knew that she was keeping her identity hidden and everything, I was like, ah, crap. So she's gonna be like an anime witch version of like Clark Kent or something, where she's trying to hide who she is, and the big premise is going to be trying to make sure that we keep her a secret. Well, no, now it's out in the open, and I think that's actually much more interesting and refreshing, because I think that there are a lot of situations that could hypothetically come up from the fact that she is a witch. We don't really fully understand what all that actually entails in this universe, what people think of witches, what witches are actually capable of, etc. I mean, we know about Oscar's curse, and we know some of the skills that we see from Tinasha, but we don't really know whether there are serious, medical or physiological reasons why you might not want to put a witch into the royal bloodline. And that's something that actually needs to be considered in this situation, given what's going on and what the point is. We also don't know exactly what kinds of behaviors this is going to have for people at the palace as this rumor undoubtedly circulates, and what kinds of differing reactions we'll get from different people and what they might do, because the scariest thing isn't somebody who says something mean to your face, it's what somebody might do behind your back. So the idea that this is swirling around in the background, this could cause some interesting drama and some interesting situations for our characters going forward, and I thought that was a good move on their part. Let's get to the heart of the things that really drove me up the wall, and that is the reality that Tinasha is a one-woman army. Hear me out on this. Okay, so Tinasha is a witch. Tinasha has lived multiple lifetimes. Tinasha is obviously a competent spellcaster. All of these things made sense. When she was able to protect the girl when the light threatened to come down when she was casting the spell, I got that. When she was casting things on Oscar to protect him, I got that. When she explained to Oscar all the different things that would protect him based off of what she had done, I got that. When her dragon was able to grow in size, I got that. All of that was fine. But what I don't understand about what they've done here is that not only have they made her a competent mage, but they've made her an ultra competent swordsperson who can literally seem to defeat any foe that she comes into contact with. This kind of doubling down in power is actually often a real big pain in the ass, because what it does is it makes the character a lot less vulnerable. It makes it so we have to fear for the character a lot less, and it makes it so that other characters can't really engage with that character on any kind of level where connection and meaning between those characters can be as easily established. We see Tinasha telling Oscar and the others that they need not come with her when she goes to the lake. When they get to the lake and fight things, we see regular people getting injured, which I suppose that's understandable. And I get that they needed to make sure that there weren't a billion people going to fight stuff going forward, because that becomes thematically confusing to actually choreograph inside of a scene, and also doesn't spotlight our main characters. As a writer, that makes sense. But what really bothered me is that when Oscar wanted to come with her, she was basically like, nah, I don't need you. And that was lame. And the fact that he actually just stayed was lame. And the fact that she went off and fought stuff on her own was lame. There are going to be a lot of ladies who are going to be like, that's so badass, and really enjoy the idea that this woman has all of this power and all of this capability and everything. But the thing is, like, it's not as big a deal as you think it is. Because in the real world, we don't really prize that kind of capability anymore. I don't know why people still think this is so important. And when it shows up in stories and it's used like this, what it actually does is it destroys and undermines traditional ideas of romanticism, and it actually makes it so that men and women don't actually value things that are interesting about each other anymore because they're so busy trying to be the same, and it makes for a really boring story. Now, to be fair, am I saying a woman should never be able to use a sword? Am I saying that men should always be the more powerful person, the leader, all that kind of stuff? No, not necessarily. It's not so much that I think the man should have been in charge or anything like that. It's that in this instance, as I mentioned earlier when I was speaking, the guy here, Oscar, he may as well not even exist. I mean, he's being treated, as far as I can tell in this episode, like he is the damsel in distress, which I mean, I could see some people finding that refreshing and even funny. It's just not to my personal taste, if I'm really honest. I think it would have been much more satisfying seeing the two of them go together and fight the beast working as a pair. And as I pointed out earlier, hopefully we'll see more teamwork between the two as things move on, and this isn't just going to continue to be the Tinasha one-woman army show, because I think that would really undermine the possibility for a connection filled with respect and dignity between the two to grow. I also think that it kind of undermines the more feminine aspects of who and what Tinasha is or could be. And I really find that frustrating. And I mean, it's something very much more common in modern stuff. And I mean, I know that the more feminine aspects of being a woman are not for everyone. But given the way that the premise of this story is set up, it's almost like this story dislikes those things, and I find that kind of strange. Then we get to the actual beast fight itself, which I will admit is well choreographed, is well executed, is beautifully done. The animation is excellent. It was a good fight. She did a great job. I really like the part in the beginning where she's coming in and she's actually getting ready to fight the people who are summoning the thing. And she comes up behind and clean takes somebody's head right off. I mean, we saw a bit of what she was capable of with a sword when she was dealing with the general, just practicing at the castle, but actually seeing her in action was pretty damn cool. I will give her that. I also thought it was really interesting, and it really caught me by surprise, that she actually just tore the seals off of the creature and let it loose. At first I was like, oh crap, that was kind of irresponsible. But I realized, obviously having seen it now, that it was important for her to do that because she wanted to make sure that the thing could not be summoned by these people again, or unsheathed, or whatever you want to call it. So I mean, I can get where she's coming from. The last thing that I will say about this overall sequence, especially when the dragon picks her up and is like taking her back to the castle where Oscar and the others are waiting, which is really funny. I mean, it's like Rapunzel in her tower, except that it's him instead of her, which is its own thing, I guess, is that the injury she receives is, unironically, to her stomach and presumably to her womb, which of course she heals, but I mean, could it be any more on the nose? I had to like just not face palm at that. Like, it was just another little thing. And I mean, to be clear, it's very possible that I'm nitpicking. This just really didn't work for me, and it had a bunch of pet peeves. So there was that. Moving on to a positive thing to wrap this up. I actually did like the overall way they dealt with the healing and the consequences of what happened to her. That she didn't just like magically heal in a way where nothing happened, but rather that she has some kind of special ability to be able to regenerate by eating her own, I think it's like she's eating her own like lifespan or time or whatever, because it actually physically altered her body. I wonder how many people are going to notice the hair and how many people are going to notice the boobs. Let's be real here. Some people are going to be like, there's some boobs now, because that's just how people are, and it's anime, and I'm not trying to be a dick. I actually find it funny. I will say I noticed the hair. I'm like, what happened to your hair, dude? And then I realized what all had gone on, and I'm like, oh, okay. And it'll be interesting to see just how is that going to go over with people in this castle, because, I mean, are they going to be able to somehow reinvent the idea of a disguise because she does look so different? Or are they going to actually take this at face value and use it? We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, if you were brave and bold enough to get through all of this with me, thank you so much, because this was a really hard one to talk about, because this just really didn't gel with me this week, and that sucks. I like it so much more when I'm super happy and super into something, and I always feel kind of down when I just don't like something. And to be 1000% clear, if you had a completely different take on this episode, I don't think that you're seeing it wrong or anything. I think that for different people, this episode is probably going to hit and sit very different depending on your values, your interests, the way that you look at life, all kinds of stuff, which is, to be fair, a hallmark of good writing. Good writing should ensure that anyone who looks at something is going to see it differently based off of their own perspective, rather than being told how to see it through something inside of the narrative. So again, there's another good piece of praise that I can give the second episode of this series. At any rate, please feel free to let me know what you thought of this episode in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video. Talk to you later. Bye!